Hello, my name is Tiffany Grinstead, and this is Becky Banyan, and we are going to be going over and administering the Communication Activities of Daily Living, second edition. And first, what we would like to do is kind of just go over some information about the test and things that you need to have set up. That way, everything runs smoothly for you and the client. The first thing that you need to have set up, is you need to have your examiner book. This is for the examiner, and the test manual suggests that you have this section 1 completely filled out, because there are questions within the test that you are going to need to look back at this information to make sure that the client is getting the answers correct and how to score it. That's the first thing. Also, you should have, they suggest that you have your picture book out. This has pictures in it that are going to be, are directly related to the questions that are within the booklet. Also, you need to have out 4 quarters. We made some makeshift dollar bills because we didn't have any, so here are our makeshift Monopoly money. You need to have that, 4 $1 bills and 4 quarters. You need to have a pencil, and it just needs to kind of be laying close to the client. And also you need to have a telephone. Typically when this is given, it is given in maybe a hospital or some kind of medical setting, and they may have a telephone close. But if not, a cell phone will work fine, just as long as the person can get to the numbers. Because there are questions within the booklet that ask that. Also, you need to have the patient response booklet ready and have it filled out with the name and date and everything, because this is going to have information that pertains to the questions in the booklet. Also, you need to make sure this test is supposed to be administered in a relaxed and friendly manner, because we are assessing people who have lost some of their ability to communicate effectively. And we are looking at their functional communication repertoire according to the test manual. And so the whole purpose of this test is to get a valid sample of that so that we know how their functional communication is. Also, this needs to be given at a normal rate of speed. You don't need to slow it down or speed it up. The test manual also suggests that it's a good practice to transcribe or tape record each patient's entire assessment, so that depending on the severity of the patient, you can go back and make sure that you have properly scored it, and what you wrote down on your booklet is also matching what they said, just for a more complete, error-free testing. The whole point of this test is we're scoring on them getting the message across in salient communicative act, and that is what we are looking for. So with no further ado, I am going to turn it over to Miss Becky, and she is going to explain her role as the client and what the client is kind of going through and what we're going to be looking at today.
Yes, so my name is Becky Banyan, and I am the client. I am a 68-year-old female who presents with communication deficits resulting from right hemisphere damage due to a stroke. So I'm going to be demonstrating some deficits which include prosopagnosia, as well as deficits with prosodic communication. And these are going to include misinterpretation of figurative language. So these are just a few examples I will be demonstrating throughout the test and through some errors in our testing.
All right, we are about to begin the test, but before we do, there are a few things that we thought would be beneficial to those who are watching the video, and it is about scoring, because there are a few little nuances that are a little different than maybe a normal or a test that you would maybe be used to giving, so I just wanted to tell you about these because I think they're important. The first thing that you need to know is that the booklet the test manual says that as examiners, we should provide a positive, accepting atmosphere that encourages the patients to use whatever means they have to answer each item. And in keeping with this philosophy, the patients are not penalized if they spontaneously ask for an item to be repeated. And what that means is if I ask a question and Becky, as the client, immediately asks me, can you repeat that? I do not penalize her for that, or penalize her for that. And I repeat the question to her, and if she gets it correct, then she gets the full points. And let's talk about that for a second. Everything is scored from a 2 to a 0. So there's a 0 score, a 1 score, and a 2 score. 0 is completely incorrect, or wrong. 1 is adequate answer, and 2 is correct. And the test manual is very good and thorough on letting you know how you should be scoring this and the directions and what you need to do. But the one thing that we found that was a little tricky if you didn't read about it is when you ask the client a question, they have 5 seconds to administer a response. If they do not respond, which some patients who have had strokes or some patients who have not been, who may have some other disability or disorder, may not respond in that 5 seconds. If they don't respond in that 5 seconds, you repeat the question. However, they get a score of 1. So if you ask the question and after 5 seconds they don't respond and you ask it again and they get it correct, then they get 1 point. However, if you ask the question and 5 seconds later they don't respond, or within 5 seconds they don't respond, and you ask it again and they get it wrong or they don't respond at all, they get a 0. Hence, if you ask a question and they spontaneously request for it to be repeated and they get it right, they get the full 2 points. So basically, if they don't answer a question within 5 seconds, you automatically, as the examiner, have to repeat it. And depending on how they answer that, correctly or incorrectly or adequately, depends on what score they get. So just to reiterate, ask a question to the client, 5 seconds, within 5 seconds, no response, you automatically ask again. If they don't respond after those 5 seconds, it's a 0. If it's the wrong answer, it's a 0. If it's the correct answer, it's 1 point. Other scenario, you ask the question to the client and they automatically realize that they don't understand and they may say, can you repeat that? Spontaneously, they will ask, can you repeat that question for me? And they get it correct, they get the full 2 points. If they don't get it correct, it's a 0, and if it's an adequate answer, it would be 1 point. And you can, if that was a little confusing, you can always go back to your test manual and reread about it, but I thought that it was important to bring that up in this video so that you would know that it's there, and if I didn't explain it well enough, then you can go and look at it. There are also some key things on each particular question that as we go through it, things that Becky and I found were important and would need to be known and interesting, we will point those out. So there may be points within this film where I will ask her a question and she will intentionally answer it incorrectly, and at that point we will redirect as to why she answered it incorrectly, what you're supposed to do, and how you continue on from there, because those are important things. And given that the client that you're dealing with may become tired or maybe agitated, or they're not feeling well because they're in the hospital, it's important to keep, like the book said, a positive attitude, or the test manual said, a positive attitude, and keep it flowing and keep it moving. This isn't a tricky test, but the more you know, the easier it is, and the easier it is, the more convenient it is for you and the client. So let's get started. Okay, we're back, and we are about to begin the test, administer the test. And like I said, we're going to stop periodically and redirect to give you an example or give you a reason of why, explaining why Becky may have answered the way that she did and how we scored that. You may also notice that I removed the picture book and the money. That is because the test manual suggests that those things can be distracting for clients, and to kind of keep those out of the way until it is time to use them. So if you were wondering why that was moved, that is why. All right, so here we go. Hello, Miss Becky.
Hello.
Would you hand me that pencil, please? All right, now if you'll notice in this question, I asked her, would she hand me that pencil, please? And she just picked up the pencil. She didn't give it to me. There are two options on item number 2. The first is that you can give 1 point if the patient picks up the pencil but does not give it to the examiner. Or the patient hands the examiner to the pencil, hands me the pencil, she gets the full 2 points. However, as you'll notice, Becky did not hand me the pencil. She just picked it up and kept it with her. So therefore, in this particular instance, she will get 1 point per the test manual. And we found that interesting that that she actually has to hand it to you in order for her to get the full 2 points. Okay, continuing on. Let's see. Your first name is Beth, isn't it?
No.
In this example, they specifically ask you to give the wrong name to see if the patient can recognize that you called them by their wrong name. They also suggest that you get a name that is very similar to the patient's actual name. Our patient's name is Becky, therefore I used the word Beth. And when it comes to scoring, if she agrees with my miscommunication and she goes, yes, my name is Beth, or shakes her head, or any of those, she gets 0 points. As with our patient, she did indicate that the name is incorrect, but she did not give me or correct me on what the right name was. She just told me that it was wrong. In that instance, she's going to get 1 point. However, if she had corrected me and said, no, my name is not Beth, it's Becky, she would have gotten the full 2 points. So these are just some things to be aware of when you go over this particular question. You need to make sure you have a name that's very similar to the one to your client. So also another example of that in a male would be if the patient's name is James, you may want to use John as the incorrect name. So now we're going to continue on to number 4 of giving the test here. I want to check some information in your chart. Is your address 431 Apple Court?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. And what kind of work have you done, either inside or outside the home?
I was a teacher for 32 years.
Okay. And how did your speech difficulty come about? Okay. All right. In this particular question, I asked our client, how did your speech difficulty come about? There are 2 ways that this can be scored, and there's only a score of 1 or 2. There is no 0. So the patient provides 1 point if only general information or points to his or her head, or to the hemiplegic side. Therefore, our client pointed to her head and was going, So we would give her 1 point for this particular answer. However, if she had provided me with enough information to determine the patient's realistic appraisal of the major reason for the stroke difficulty, the present difficulty, excuse me. For instance, if she said, I had a stroke 6 years ago, I had a stroke 4 months ago, a lot more detail and really vocalizes that, then she gets the full 2 points. We thought that this particular question was you needed to know that because maybe as a examiner sitting across from the client, they have to be able to vocalize that. They can't just point to their head or point to their face or point to their whatever part of their body that they point to. They must actually verbalize and describe kind of what created the difficulty. All right, so moving along, excuse me. I'm going to pull out the picture book, and of course, as the astute examiner that I am, I have it turned to the proper page, so we don't have to fiddle with that as we're going. And so we're going to ask her some questions about this, and I'm going to say to her, I'd like to find out how you get along every day. But because I can't go along and actually watch, I'll use this picture to ask you some questions. Okay. We'll do things related to eating, shopping, driving, and visiting the doctor. So let's start. Okay. And these are also important because this is functional communication. So for this one right here, Miss Becky, can you, what's the best time here for eating lunch?
12 o'clock.
Which one, I'm sorry? And what time?
12 noon?
Yes, very good. All right. Let's go to the next one. Oops. Oh, thanks. Okay, here's a menu. Find the lunch section. What would you want for lunch? Can you show me the lunch section? And what would you want for lunch?
Maybe a cheeseburger.
All right. It should be noted also, and it gives you the instructions here, that they need to select something from the lunch menu, and they need to be able to tell you what they want. They can't just point to it and say this. They need to be able to express shrimp salad. And any combination of picking from anything else, the points fluctuate, and that's something that you need to be aware of. All right, let's go to picture number 9. Here's a bus schedule. What time in the afternoon does bus number 3 leave Maintown?
Mm. 12:15, it looks like.
Very good. That's very nice. Thank you. All right, let's go to picture number 10. What would you wear or use on a day like this?
Well, it's rainy, so I would want to have my umbrella with me and maybe a raincoat.
Yes. Can you hear that rain out there now? It's raining right now. Probably looks like that outside, doesn't it? Okay, let's go to the next one. How would you let someone know that you're cold? Can you show me in one of these pictures? Oh, whoops. Wrong one. No. Okay, Miss Becky, how would you let someone know that you're cold?
Oh, I guess I would ask for a blanket or ask them to turn up the heat.
All right. And can you look at these pictures and which one is funny? Which one makes you laugh? Which one is funny?
Oh, I guess this one where he's chasing birds on the
That
wire.
He's got problems, doesn't he? All right. All right, I want you to look in your patients in your booklet here, okay? Here is an invitation to a birthday party. Can you mark it on your calendar using the pencil right here, please? Of when you need to go?
June 12th. Well,
It also should be noted that depending on what she writes, how she writes it, or any other pertinent or non-pertinent information is added to that, it fluctuates the score, and that's something that you need to look at while you are scoring or after the scoring, or after the test is administered. You can go back and score that. Excuse me. All right. Okay, the next few questions are about going to a doctor's office. I'll show you some pictures and ask you some questions about going to see a doctor. Here's the appointment card. Here's the doctor's name. And the time of your appointment. Okay? So, here's the clock. It's now 5 minutes after 10. How long until your appointment?
Oh, almost 5 hours.
All right. All right. Here's a building directory. What floor is Dr. Clark's office on?
Okay. The second floor.
Okay. We're going to stop here and go over this. There are specific questions throughout the test, and they are highlighted with an asterisk beside them. Those particular questions, the patient must, or the client must get those right, because the correct answer, because that subsequent answers on the test are dependent on whether or not that one is correct. Since Becky got that particular question wrong, the correct answer, we asked, here's the building directory, what floor is Dr. Clark's office on? And if you look, it's actually on the 3rd floor. The test manual suggests that you, doesn't suggest, you must correct the patient and explain to them that he's actually on the 3rd floor, because that is going to come up after more questions come on down. So that one needs to be correct, and you need to give them the correct answer should they get it wrong. So we're going to go on to the next one, which is picture 16, and you'll see how that kind of transpires throughout the test. Remember, this is number 16, remember Dr. Clark's office is on the 3rd floor, which is why we needed to correct her, because that answer is in the next question, and we don't want her to get that incorrect because she thought that it was something else. So, number 16, remember Dr. Clark's office is on the 3rd floor. Here's the elevator. Here's the elevator. What do you do after you step into the elevator?
Okay, well, I will push the number 3 button to get to the 3rd floor.
Very nice. Yes, you would. Kind of a dirty elevator, isn't it? All right, number 17. And you wouldn't say these numbers to the client, but just to make sure that we're flowing and you know that I'm coming on to the next one, that you know that the next question is coming. Let's say that you walk in to Dr. Clark's waiting room and see this. What does that sign tell you to do?
All patients must register with the receptionist.
Yes. And this is another one that is has an asterisk beside it, which means that there's going to be another question that if she had gotten this wrong, I would correct her on that and give her the proper answer, or the correct answer. If the receptionist asked, "May I help you?" what would you say?
That I need to register for my appointment with the factor.
Yes. Okay. If the receptionist asked you for some kind of identification, what would you show her?
My driver's license.
Okay. All right, now, please fill out this form as if you were, as if I was the receptionist and you were the patient and you've come into the doctor's office and I give you this and you need to fill it out.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now I want to show you what Becky did here. For item number 20, I asked her to please fill out the form, and it's in the test manual, or in the client's manual that she's been using on the test form. Patient response booklet. So there are also scores for this. Had Becky used her finger to write on this, that would have been 0 points. If she just indicates that she cannot fill it out and doesn't give a reason why, that's 1 point. And as Becky did, she picked up the pencil and just filled it out. If she'd have asked me for a pencil, that's still 2 points, and she fills it out. Of course, now if your patient is physically disabled or unable to do this step, the test manual gives you specific instructions on how to administer and score that particular part of this test, because obviously if your client has a physical impairment and they're not able to do this, but they understand the process, there's a different way to administer and score, and those need to be looked at in your test manual, and it's very laid out, very clear. So there is scoring for actually requesting the pencil, writing this down, or using error writing with your finger. Also, the next part of this would be how they filled it out. So Becky filled it out. All areas are filled out: her name, address, phone number, age, and which appointment she has a doctor's appointment with. And depending on how much she fills out, depicts her score. Therefore, if she had only filled out 1 or 2 of these items and gave her information verbally only, like, well, my name is Becky, and this is my address, and this is my phone number, and this is my age, and didn't use her pencil or write it down or take the initiative, that's 0 points. 2 to 6 of these items correctly filled out is 1 point, and 7 or more filled out is the full 2 points. And as you can see, Becky did a very good job on that because she is a typically neurodeveloped person. So, but we just wanted to show you that there are 2 parts to scoring that particular part of this test. So on to we're now continuing on with the test. Okay. How would you describe your problem to the doctor?
Oh, that I've been having some headaches and some trouble with certain memory tasks, off and on. Some things seem to be getting a little harder for me.
Okay. All right. If Dr. Clark asked you, have you been experiencing Plasmodiasthenia, dystonia, what would you say?
I would have to ask him what that is. I don't know.
All right. On item number 23, it's a pseudo word kind of describing experiencing something, but it's a has no meaning, the word. Therefore, if the patient agrees that they have it, it's zero, because they don't have it. The patient responds tentatively, probably no, but they don't ask to have any clarification on exactly what that word is. That's 1 point. If the patient indicates that he or she does not understand, as Becky did, or requests some clarification or acts surprised, it's the full 2 points, because that's the point of this question, is to present them with something they've never heard before and ask them if they have it, so that we can understand how the cognition is going there. All right, continuing along. According to this label, how much cold medicine should you take?
It looks like 2 to 4 teaspoons every 4 hours.
Okay. If Dr. Clark told you to smoke 3 packs of cigarettes and drink a bottle of gin a day, what would you say?
No, sir.
That's right.
I don't do that.
Now, had she agreed with me or just go along with what the doctor said, then we would have given 0 points. And that may have needed to be noted, because she was just going along with what the doctor agreed that she should do, and that should be something that we might need to keep an eye out for. Okay, if you needed to use the restroom, which one would you choose?
The females over here.
Okay. You see this?
Mm-hmm.
What's happening?
He's driving down the road.
Okay. On this particular question, and I don't think that you can see it. Maybe you can see it now. Whoops, there we go. The speedometer and the speed limit sign are completely different. He is obviously speeding. The speed limit is 25. However, our little cartoon character here is going 60. And the point of this is that they need to recognize that he is going over the speed limit. So since Becky said that he's just driving, we would score her probably give her a 0, because she indicated that there was really no problem. He's just driving. And then dependent on how much detail she gives on speeding and the speed limit sign would dictate how many points that she could get, 2, 1, depending on what it is. So that's something that you need to kind of keep an eye out on, because to be quite honest, with this particular picture, it took me a few minutes to look at it, and it wasn't until I actually read it in the manual that I realized that the speed limit sign and the speedometer, he's really going fast. So I was like, I don't understand this, but now I do. So I'm just wanting to understand that I made a mistake too. So excuse me. And then okay, also on this picture, Becky, can you tell me what should this driver do?
Well, it looks like he should be going 25 miles an hour.
All right. What symbol best describes this picture?
Well, there's a railroad there, so...
All right, that's right. Okay. Okay, let's do something else. This is about going to the store and shopping, okay? So, I think you have to have this. Page 4. There we go. All right, can you make me a list of 3 things you might need from the grocery store? Yes. I also would like to point out that in this particular question, they are asked to write on the back of the response form. However, they do get full points if they have drawn or if they verbally state the items that are on there. If the patient cannot write, they still do get the full points. So that's something to be noted as well. All right. All right, you stop in a grocery store and you want to buy a can of tomato soup. Which one will you pick? All right. Which one of these go with this symbol?
Bug spray.
Mm-hmm. All right. Here is $5, 4 $1 bills, and 4 quarters for shopping. Oops. And here is a vending machine. Show me how you would get a drink.
I need to use the money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So 50 cents it looks like. Put in the machine and then press the button of the pop you want.
Okay. If you needed a machine, if you needed medicine, excuse me, which one could you buy with the money you have left? The price for each is listed here.
The aspirin.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like it's $2.25.
Very good. Okay. Here's a picture of a store. Where's the section where you could find a notebook?
The office products.
Okay. You need shoelaces, but you can't find them. If a clerk asked, "May I help you?" what would you say?
Where do I find the shoelaces?
Okay. You want white shoelaces, only white shoelaces. Where are they? Okay. Here's a map. How do you get from the bank to the post office?
Looks like there's a few different routes you could take, but that's one.
Okay. And on this one, they do not need to, she doesn't have to respond verbally. She could have said, you go down to First Street and then go to International Boulevard, for example, or she can just do what Becky did and point with her finger and do it that way. And either way, she gets the full points. All right. Find where the car repair shops are listed in these yellow pages.
We have repair, automotive repair here and here.
All right. Now I'd like you to use the phone. Here's a phone directory page to help you. guess we can use this. Please call time and temperature and let me know what time it is and what the temperature is.
Okay, it's 6:17 p.m. and it's 83 degrees out.
Okay. It should be noted that she has points. Each one of these is separate. It's not all packed into one question. So she gets points, and there's also protocol for placing the call, reporting it to the examiner, which is myself. So, all right, if you looked across the street, okay, and saw a fire, what would you do?
I would call 911 and tell them there's a fire.
Okay. On this particular question, and there are a couple, I do believe there are a few more questions throughout the booklet, but these were the ones that were pointed out. Okay, on this question I asked her, if you looked across the street and saw a fire, what would you do? And she responded that she would call 911 and tell them that there was a fire. In this particular instance, that also answers the next question, which is, if you called 911, what would you tell the operator? Therefore, the test manual says that you should go, since she answered 43 and 44 in the same instance, we're going to skip down to number 45. So we will score 43 with the full points because she answered it properly. We're going to score 44 with the correct points because she scored that, because she answered that correctly in the same sentence, and then we're going to move down to 45. So we're not repeating the question to her again. So for now we're going to go to number 45. Becky, can you tell me what's happening in this picture?
Well, there's a gentleman smoking and a lady who's sitting next to him that doesn't look too pleased. There's also a no smoking sign above him.
Very well. Okay. Yeah, that looks kind of bad, doesn't it? All right. Which newspaper headline tells you what you see in this picture?
American takes historic walk on the moon.
All right. Okay. Let's see here. You scheduled something on the calendar a little while ago. Which one of these was it?
Oh, I think the birthday, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. In this particular question, it's asking the client to go back to the question that when I had her put on the calendar that she had a birthday party coming up on a particular day. If she decides, if she uses her book to go back and look to see what that was, that is acceptable. The patient may look at the calendar when responded if he or she is resourceful enough to think of this. Therefore, if she looks, we do not count points off for that. All right, we're going to continue on to number 48. Here are some pictures. Can you show me the happy face? All right. Which picture says be quiet? And which picture is the person saying, I don't know?
I don't know.
All right. Show me the drawing that goes with the saying, "He hit the ceiling." Oh,
Up here, he's hitting the ceiling.
okay. It also should be noted that this can be scored two ways. The literal response to that, as he hit the ceiling, would be this particular picture here, where he actually is hitting the ceiling. That also could mean, in the non-literal sense, hitting the ceiling, or this non-literal picture, to be angry. So either one of these pictures shown gets the points. If these pictures over here are chosen, they get no points. So whether they pick the literal picture or the non-literal picture, they still get the same amount of points. All right, that is all for the for this. I would also like to note that I messed up, and I will acknowledge that. When I asked her which one says "be quiet," it should have been this particular picture card. And then when I said, "Where's the person saying I don't know?" it's this particular picture card. It wasn't the original one, and those are on those directions are on here. But I did not flip the picture over. So learn from my mistakes, flip the pictures over. Then you would score this, and it's a pretty self-explanatory scoring. But I'm going to turn it over to Becky and let her talk about your some of the ones that you got wrong and why we intentionally got them wrong.
So as I said at the beginning, I was a 67-year-old female who presents with communication deficits resulting from right hemisphere damage due to a stroke. And some of the deficits I was going to demonstrate were towards the end here when Tiffany asked me questions about some expression here. So these I answered incorrectly because I was trying to demonstrate a deficit with prosopagnosia, where I have difficulty recognizing facial expressions. And with the last question here, with figurative language, I answered responding to the picture that the man was actually hitting the ceiling, as opposed to being able to comprehend the figurative expression, the man hit the ceiling, meaning he was angry. So even though I got this correct, because it was the literal meaning, I was unable to comprehend the figurative meaning he is angry and hit the ceiling. So those were just a couple of the deficits that I demonstrated with right hemisphere damage. And that is all for our test.
I hope you enjoyed it, and it was a pretty interesting and fun test to give, and I hope you guys learned a little something from it. All right, thanks.